Nazis. Or, as Brad Pitt would say, Nazis. Now there's a word that will get your attention. Nazism represented and represents the worst aspects of mankind. However, Nazis may be the best movie villains of all time. And today, while hate seems to have become a much more common emotion among a much broader spectrum of people, it's still hard to find a group that everyone can agree to hate, except for the Nazis. Everyone can still hate on the Nazis. And as being such, Nazis appear in all types of movie genres, but they may be at their most effective when showing up in horror movies. They've been the subject of enough of them that we have the identifiable subgenre of Nazi horror movie, and within that subgenre, more subgenres even still. So, enter Overlord, the J.J. Abrams produced war/horror hybrid that sinks a much bigger than usual budget into one of those schlocky subsets. Okay, here's the setup. The night prior to the Allied Normandy landing of World War II, we find ourselves inside a plane filled with American paratroopers. They've been tasked with dropping down onto French soil to take out a German radio transmitter located inside of an old church. Now, the purpose of this mission is to help thwart the Axis response to the impending invasion. Codenamed Operation Overlord. Complications ensue in the very tense opening scene. By the time they hit the ground, their unit has shrunk considerably. Among those remaining are Private Boyce, who's only been serving for the past 3 months and who acts as our story's moral focus. Alongside him are Tibbet, a textbook example of the World War II wise guy grunt, Dawson, a would-be writer, Chase, a war photographer, Rosenfeld, another green soldier, and the enigmatic explosives expert Ford, who in several ways acts as a no-nonsense and much more violent counterpart to the idealistic Boyce. So, our brave and now undermanned platoon moves on toward a small French village that their target looms over, quite ominously. Once there, they come into contact with a tough, resourceful, and not unattractive young woman named Chloe, who has done and will do whatever it takes to protect her young brother from the clutches of the lecherous, psychotic officer Waffner, who commands the local Nazi operation. Also in Chloe's care is her very, very sick aunt, who is one of the many villagers who have been subjected to some kind of mysterious Nazi experiment going on underneath the church. Pretty soon our heroes begin to wonder if Nazi soldiers are the only form of evil they're going to have to deal with inside the maze-like set of dark, dingy corridors and reinforced prison-like cells found underneath their target. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Overlord is a bigger budgeted example of a type of movie that usually debuts on home video or streaming services or some other kind of ancillary market, not on 2,900 screens simultaneously. $1 million present wrapped up in a $40 million package. So the question is now, do the bells and whistles increase the true value of the product? And the answer is, yeah, kind of. The production design, special effects, and particularly the outlandish makeup are all very effective and should cause the average moviegoer to be appropriately grossed out. And I think it will mostly satisfy the gorehounds out there as well, at least in quality, if not in quantity. And I know that personally, there were a couple of effects so outlandishly grotesque and perverse looking that I caught myself laughing out loud. And I don't mean that in a negative way toward the movie. I know that I read one review that said they thought a couple of effects might elicit some unintentional laughter. But at least in my case, my laughs were more of the, oh, that's so bizarre, it kind of disturbs me type. And for me, that's a good reaction, at least in this kind of movie. The acting from a cast of mostly young up-and-comers ranges from serviceable to good. And if the actor playing Ford looks a little familiar and you can't quite place him, that's understandable. He's played by Wyatt Russell, whose dad, Kurt, well, he's acted in a couple of outlandish genre pictures himself. And a particular standout here is Pilou Asbaek as the horrific Nazi commander Waffner. Now, there have been a number of really good, effective Nazi villains throughout movie history, and while this character is way too camp for him to rise to the status of somebody like, say, a Hans Landa, it is a worthy addition to that unsavory collection. You can tell that Pilou had a blast going way, way over the top. And that's the whole movie, really. Taking identifiable characters and situations and going way, way over the top. And that's kind of what most examples of this genre do anyway. It's interesting, though, seeing it being done with some serious Hollywood money behind it. Now, as I say that, I need to make it understood that while Overlord does this, it does this without winking at the audience. It goes way over the top with its effects and gore, but the story itself and the direction it's given by Julius Avery is done pretty straight-faced. It doesn't show that the filmmakers are in on the joke, and that's a plus for the movie, because way too many examples of this genre do that winking, no-wink kind of thing way too often. Now, on the downside, Overlord kind of stalls a little bit during stretches of Act 2, and some of the characters come across as a little anachronistic, out of their time period, in both their looks and their behaviors. The only character that really kind of escapes that fact is the stereotypical Tibbet. And it's a bit of a hit-and-miss script from co-writers Billy Ray and Mark L. Smith, who themselves have had hit-and-miss filmographies. Ray somehow survived his debut feature credit, Color of Night, the megabomb starring Bruce Willis, to go on to write such movies as Breach, The Hunger Games, and Captain Phillips. Smith co-authored The Revenant, as well as Vacancy and Martyrs. Also, as far as this script goes, the third act may not satisfy everybody as far as overall scope of the action is concerned. More of a quantity thing as opposed to a quality thing. And I really can't say much more than that without fear of giving too much away. And that's a tough thing to do when reviewing this kind of movie, giving enough information to satisfy without blowing the whole damn story, because this type of movie demands a little more surprise than others. But the big surprise, for me at least, is how satisfying I found it. Overall, Overlord is a minor but successful operation. 3 knobs. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you like the review, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, if somebody wages war on your inalienable right to movie knobbiness, fire back and tell them to surrender, because it's all for the love of the frame.